my name is Amanda, and today I am filming my first Pan Those Eyeshadows update. If you have not seen my introduction video, I will link it down below. So I'm going to go from the least amount of excitement slash progress to the most amount of progress. So the first shade that I want to talk about comes from my ColourPop purple palette, my mostly depotted ColourPop shades. And the shade that I had pulled in the introduction was Earthshine. So I will have a picture up on the screen of what it looked like in the introduction. And this is what it is looking like today. I have only used it 2 times so far in the last month. I've just had other shades within this project and in other projects that I have been focusing a little bit closer on. So that shadow, I tend to want to wear it more in winter versus in fall, which I think is part of the reason why I haven't worn it as frequently over the last month. With that being said, like, I'm not too concerned that I am not going to get progress on it. My kitties like to play when I sit down, so please bear with me. I'm not too concerned about progress going forward. I think this is going to be one of the shades that I use 15 times in the rollout because I don't imagine that 13 uses is going to get me anywhere close to pan. So I am going to keep that shade within the project for at least another month. The next shade that I rolled into the project comes from my Anastasia Beverly Hills Sultry palette, and the shade that was rolled in is Cinder. So I will have a picture up on the screen of what it looked like in the introduction, and this is what it is looking like today. This shade I have also used only 2 times so far, and as you can see, there's already a pan in this shade. So my goal with this shade is to use it just 10 times. And so far I've used it the 2 times, so I have 8 more uses to go. When I think of fall, like, this is the color story that I tend to think of. So I am, again, not super concerned that I haven't reached for it more than the 2 times over the last month. I think as we move forward in the October, November, that this will be one of those shades that I will reach for more often. The next shade I focused on came from my ColourPop That's Taupe palette, and it is in the shade Rock Steady. So I will have a picture up on the screen of what it looked like in the introduction, and this is what it is looking like today. I have used it a total of 4 times, and it doesn't look like it. This shade I have used for work looks those 4 times, and I wanted to experiment if I could use a fluffier brush in order to create a less dark look with a deeper shade like this, and that was successful. So that's how I've worn this shade. I have like dipped a very fluffy brush into it very lightly and created a light application. So that's why with 4 uses it doesn't even look like I touched it. But going forward, I feel like this will be my go-to palette for work looks, for cooler toned looks. The next palette that I was focusing on was my Urban Decay Wild Greens palette, and it is in the shade Lo-Fi that I was working on. So I will have a picture up on the screen of what it looked like in the introduction, and this is what it is looking like today. I am wearing this palette today, surprise, surprise, and I did use this shade for my transition and also as a blush shade. So if I am using a shade for more than 1 use, meaning like outside of my eye look, like as a blush, I do count that as a separate use. So like today, 2 uses on this palette or 2 uses on this shade. And I have used this shade a total of 9 times within the project so far. This shade has a pretty nice dip going on in there. I think the picture will probably show you a little bit better. I feel like this is a shade that I could hit pan on. I don't have pan to show within any of the other shades that I can compare it to. But I feel like if I don't get to pan within the next 6 uses, that this is one that I might continue focusing on, just because I feel like it's nearly there, and I feel like that would be very satisfying to have a pan in this palette, since I don't have any pan at all yet. The other added bonus is that I have been having a lot of fun playing with this palette. As you can see, I have been dipping into the greens a little bit more, which is very much out of my comfort zone. So I'm very happy that this was pulled into the project to give me that push to play with these shades a little more. My next goal is to reach into these warmer tone shades up top to create a look with lo-fi, because I feel like that would also be very beautiful. And then the last shade that I was focusing on within the project came from my Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes palette. And the shade that I rolled in is the shade EE1, or Ethereal Eyes 1. So I will have a picture up on the screen of what it looked like in the introduction. And this is what it is looking like today, trying not to blind you since it is bright outside right now. So this shade, I have reached my 15 use threshold, and it doesn't even look like I touched it. So for this shade, I am not using a dense brush to pick up the shadow, so it doesn't really look like I have any progress in this shade. But I did use it the 15 times, and I did actually hit pan in this palette. In the shade EE12 here. I did that on the 14th use of this shade. And something that I had done in this project in the past, if I had hit pan in a different shade within the palette, and I no longer wanted to focus on the focus shade that I was working on, I have the opportunity to roll the palette out of the project. I think going forward, like that could potentially, like that might be something that I would want to do. That wasn't the case with this shade because it was so easy to focus on. But it gives me just, another way to keep the project rolling and keep things new. I do prefer to roll through my eyeshadow palettes more consistently, versus like a pan that palette where I am, having a strict focus on just one thing. So going forward, I will allow myself that opportunity. I don't know that I would necessarily use it very often. So because I hit one new pan, one bonus pan, I can update my pan percentage. So I do still have 254 pans of eyeshadow in my collection. I added one eyeshadow pan, so now I have 41 shades of pan, or 41 shades that have pan in my collection, which makes my pan percentage 16.1%. I am very happy with that number. I hope to, of course, keep that number going up. There are some eyeshadow palettes that are, ones that I'm kind of thinking of potentially adding to my collection. I am going to try to kind of hold off on that for a while, maybe waiting a couple months to see if I still want those palettes. And I don't really necessarily have a pan percentage goal that I am working towards at this point in time. It's really, for me, just as many pans as I can get. That's what I want to try to work towards. So I have one eyeshadow palette rolling out, and that meant that I could bring a new eyeshadow palette into this project. And I had 4 eyeshadow palettes that were eligible to be rolled in at this time, and I was secretly hoping for a palette to be rolled in because it is the fall months and I wanted to focus on warmer tones. So I was very happy that I was able to randomize in my ABH Soft Glam palette to be rolled into this project. So this is what my palette currently looks like. This is exactly the reason why in my project I wanted to allow shades that have pan in them to be rolled in. This eyeshadow palette has pan in every single shade. If I didn't allow eyeshadows with pan to be rolled in, this palette would be neglected for almost the whole year. And I didn't like that idea. So I am happy to be rolling this in, and especially for fall. I did want to randomize the shade to be selected, but I did give myself a little bit of an out in that I didn't want to focus on the cooler tone shades in this palette at this point in time. So I didn't allow Rose Pink, Sultry, or Dusty Rose to be rolled into the project at this point. So I randomized the shadow that would be rolled in, and I randomly selected Cypress Umber here. So this shade I pretty much exclusively use as a liner shade. Maybe I will play with it a little bit more as an outer corner deepening shade on some days, but this will be a super easy one to focus on. It gives me the option to really play with whatever I want in this palette. This shade I have actually already used one time, and as I have mentioned, if something already has pan in it, I'm only going to focus on it for 10 uses. So I only have 9 more uses to go with this shade, and this I think is the perfect opportunity to be focusing on this palette. So this is my new color story for the next month. It's a little different because now I have a deeper chocolatey shade thrown in the mix. But overall, this is a color story where I get that variety still. That's what I really like to see, and I am excited to continue working on these shades. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in more project panning content, I will link my playlists for Deck of Panning and That's So 2000's project pans down below. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.